So I'm often asked by sellers who are thinking about putting their home on the market whether or not it's a good idea to do a pre-inspection. And my answer is yes. The reason is, one, it'll help uncover any potential minor issues or even major issues in the home if it exists. And then secondly, it's being transparent to the buyer. So as a result, when you do this pre-inspection, you can give them that report and the buyers will feel more at peace with their purchase, knowing that you weren't trying to hide anything from them. This will actually go a long ways to having a really competitive offer, because what's going to happen is, in a competitive market like the one we're currently in, and we may not be in the future because the market will shift, it'll actually give you an advantage, because what's going to happen is the buyers are going to be more comfortable offering more money, because they're not going to have an issue with doing a request for repair, because in advance they already know what's going on with the home. A question I get often asked is, if I'm thinking about selling my home, what sort of improvements should I make to the property in order to get the best value? Because you don't want to overpay and overinvest in the upgrades and then not get that return. The answer is, it actually depends on when the last time you did any upgrades or remodeling to your home, but in general, you want to work on what has the first visual appeal. So what's the first impression of somebody walking up to the home and seeing it, right? Curb appeal is going to be really important. So, landscape the backyard, mulch if necessary, make the front yard and backyard look attractive so that the buyer will have a good feeling walking into the house immediately as they pull up to the property. Another thing is, you don't want to do full kitchen remodels or bathroom remodels, because it may not be worth it. And things like that, I think you'll get the most bang for your buck, is it's going to be painting the house, making sure that it's completely decluttered. Minor kitchen remodeling and bathroom remodeling might be okay, but I wouldn't go too overboard depending on the age of your home. The other thing is you're not 100% sure, talk to a real estate professional. They will know what to do, and a lot of times things will fluctuate depending on the market and depending on the style. So a professional real estate agent will be able to help you answer those questions. So if you're not sure what to do for your home, give me a call. I'll come out, I'll take a look at your home, and I'll make my recommendations on what I think you should do, regardless of whether you're thinking about selling or just living in your home. I'll tell you where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. A question I get often asked is that whether or not staging is worth it. I think what happens is, you're gonna obviously get more money for your home if the buyer coming through your property has a better feeling that this could be their home. If they can't see themselves living in it, they're not gonna give you a competitive price. With that said, I think a lot of the things that stagers will do would be like decluttering, repainting, and some of the minor repairs that I mentioned in the previous video. However, whether or not it's worth staging the home, it depends on the price of your home and where it is and how competitive the market is. And that's an answer that a real estate professional can help you answer. However, if all else being equal, I personally recommend properties get staged. It's always nice to be able to see what the home looks like in an ideal situation. Kind of like when you go through a new home, they have that model home example for you. It builds a warm feeling for the buyer to kind of get it feeling like, oh, okay, I can kind of see where the furniture can go. And a lot of times buyers don't necessarily have the ability to visualize what their home looks like with their furniture, and staging that home will allow them to do that. For the most part, I found you'll get your money back for the amount of money that you spent on staging. A question I get asked is whether or not it's important for me to have a professional videographer and a professional photographer to take pictures and videos of my property when I market it. The answer is absolutely yes. There are so many times I see listings and photos that are just horrible. You guys know what I'm talking about. The picture that's completely blurry, or trash cans in the middle of the room, or just looks like the property is just disheveled and nobody really cared to clean it or organize it. Or even worse, like you'll see sometimes with the listing agent's thumb in the property because they took a picture with their cell phone. It just doesn't paint your home in a really good light. And that's really important if you want people to see it. The more people seeing your home, the chances are the more likely you're gonna get multiple offers, and that in itself will help you get a higher price. If people online are looking at the pictures and they just think your house is garbage, they're not gonna offer you the best price for it, even if they come and look at it. And chances are, if the person is looking at a property that they don't want to do any repairs or remodel, they're not even gonna come see your house. So it's a good idea to get it professionally done. And for homes that are like high price point, let's say $2 million, $3 million or higher, it's really important not just to get professional photography, videography, and things like that. People buy homes at that price range not because they don't have the ability to choose. They buy homes primarily for lifestyle. So in your videos and your presentation to market the property, it's really important that you're showcasing the lifestyle of the home. What is that home giving you that other homes don't in different areas? You wanna be able to showcase that the specialness and the uniqueness of the house and where it is and why they should pick that house over any other house. Like for example, if you're selling a $50 million home, it might be important to the owner or to the potential buyer that the property has a helicopter pad, right? Or a 10-car garage. And it might seem kind of like ridiculous, but it is important to that particular buyer. So you need to showcase their lifestyle when you're talking about, or if you have a home that is a higher property value, more than $2 million, particularly here in San Diego. Sometimes I get a question from a seller that says, I don't really want to show my properties at this time or this time. And it's basically how flexible are you willing to be to show your property? The answer to this is the more people can see your property, the higher price point you're going to get. And I run into problems like this often when the property is tenant occupied because the tenants generally don't want to be asked to leave the home. And so they'll become difficult when we're having to show the property. I've had it where the homeowners reassured me that the tenant would be cooperative. And then every single appointment we tried to book, the tenant made some excuse about why they can't show it. And then what ends up happening is the property just sits on the market. And the longer a property sits on the market, the more people think that there's something wrong with it. So as a result, what's gonna happen is less people are gonna want it and the seller is gonna get less money for it every single time. I've seen it so many times. The flexibility of your showing, the more flexible you can be, the higher price you're gonna get for it because we're gonna be able to get more people through the house to see it. A question I get a lot from prospective sellers thinking about putting their home on the market is what sort of helpful information should I give a prospective buyer? And the answer to this is you should disclose as much as possible. Disclosures really do help the sellers and the buyers come to the same page. If you're trying to hide something from a buyer, that's never gonna turn out good for you. So what I would say is disclose things like schools, right? What are the schools like? And if you have information on neighborhood amenities, local parks and swimming pools, dog parks, those are really good information to provide, as well as things like, why did you buy this house, right? If the reason is you bought this house because of the spectacular view or the neighborhoods or that the neighbors are just really friendly and everyone gets along really well and it's a family community, then that's probably another reason why that buyer would consider buying that home. So things like that are really helpful. And then I even have sellers where they'll put together a binder with all the warranties and all the information about the home's appliances and things that they've done to the home. It's really helpful because when you do that, what you're doing is you're showing the prospective buyer that you are organized and you've taken care of this house and you have pride of ownership. And what they're gonna buy is somebody who cares about that home. And that's basically really important because it's gonna be their home. The dreaded question about how much should I list my home for and what can I sell my home? This is a very complicated question, especially for somebody who doesn't know the market value of their home. And so what a lot of times sellers that I talk to will have comps that they're showing me, and what I mean by comps is comparable solds in the neighborhood. Comps that they're showing me, that were 9 months ago, and they're pointing out that their neighbor's home sold for this. And what I usually say is that the housing market will fluctuate, and as a result, you're gonna need to look at comparables that are more accurate, right? So the general rule for appraisers is no more than 2 miles away and no more than 6 months out, because the market will change in between that time. With that said, whether or not you think you can get a certain price point for your home, you're gonna talk to your real estate professional. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna pull up properties on the MLS and they should be walking you through step by step the criterias that they used for analyzing their comparables, as well as what are all the information, right? Looking through the upgrades on each property compared to yours, looking at the square footage compared to yours, looking at the amenities like does it have a swimming pool or a tennis court or a view, looking at things like how long has it been sitting on the market relative to the average sale price and time frame for that property. And so a lot of times what you'll see is if the general area, the general community of where the properties are being sold has a certain duration of, hypothetically, let's say in this situation, 20 days, then how is that relative to the overall market? And is those prices being competitive? If you're seeing prices being put on the MLS, and then what happens is the list price, let's say, is $1 million, and they get sold 2 days later over a weekend, and then what happens is at the close a month, 30 days out, you're seeing that the price went, $200,000-300,000 over list price, then the agent probably didn't do a very good job of pricing it. And so you want to be able to figure that out and work that out with your real estate agent. When I price a property, often I call the agents that have sold in that area recently, and just to see what the activity was, how many viewings did they have, what was their open house like, things like that the agents do, the extra work in order to figure out what your home's value is critically important to pricing it well. If you don't price it well, your home will sit on the market, right? And the thing is, selling a house is just like selling anything else. It's a measurement of supply and demand. If there's a lot of demand for your home, you're gonna get a high price for it. If there isn't, then you overpriced it. Well, it makes sense that you're probably gonna sit on the market and you're hoping to find this one dream buyer who will be able to offer you what you want for the house. And chances are either that buyer is gonna probably back out, or they're gonna come back and then rake you over the coal with requests for repair, trying to recoup some of their overbid. And that's not something that you wanna potentially deal with because it's a pain in the butt. The other thing is if you price it well, chances are you're gonna get multiple offers. And what will happen is buyers will understand that there are multiple bidders on this property, and they're gonna be less picky about coming back to you asking for credits or requests for repair. So many times I hear people hiring their good friend or their sister's brother to help them sell a house. Everybody deserves a chance and everyone starts at the beginning. However, the National Association of Realtors says the average real estate agent sells between 2 to 3 homes a year. That's kind of risky when you're going to hire somebody to help you with the biggest investment of your life, in my opinion. You should hire somebody that has a lot of experience, sells a lot of homes, and actually knows what the heck they're doing. Chances are if they're selling homes that are only 1 or 2 a year, they don't have a ton of experience. They don't have a lot of knowledge when it comes to negotiating. They probably don't even know what the home can be valued at as far as when they're doing a comparative market analysis, because they just don't know the market. And I've even seen agents that sell like 1 a year, maybe 2 every 10 years, and their friends use them, and when asked, they're like, well, it's my friend, so I'm hiring them. My wife has an example. Once she had a friend who has bought a home with an agent, and the agent literally, when I looked him up, sold 1 house every year for 10 years. And they hired that agent, and that experience was not a good one for that friend of my wife. My question was, why would they do this? And it was because the friendship was more important to that person than their money. And this person ended up, based on my viewing of the whole situation, they probably lost out on $30,000-$40,000. And so as a result of it, was it really worth it for that person, right? It's everyone's judgment and everyone's own opinion because it's your own deal. But I personally would not have wanted to lose $40,000 to hire a friend. On top of that, had a horrible experience of having to move out of your existing home only to rent a property temporarily because they couldn't get you into the new home in time. And that does happen. And another thing is, if you really want to know whether or not an agent is qualified, all you have to do is just look them up. You guys have the ability now to look up agents on Zillow, see how many homes they've sold, Google the agent and Google what their reviews say. Find out what other people have said about them online. And if they don't have a lot of Google reviews, well, chances are they probably didn't sell a lot of homes. Those are my best advice when you're looking to hire an agent, because you're putting down a lot of money and you're spending probably what is the largest asset you'll probably end up owning, and you want somebody who can do the job and protect you. I hear the example of comparison to doctors, and yeah, real estate agents aren't doctors, but would you hire a doctor that does 2 surgeries a year? Or would you rather hire a doctor that does 100 surgeries a year? Makes a difference. So you're thinking about selling your home, but You're living in your current house. So how does that work? Can you sell your home and not have to move 2 or 3 times? The answer is yes. What we can do is something called a concurrent escrow. We can put your home on the market, sell it, and then at the end of the escrow period for the buyer, we actually have the buyer wait. And what they'll do is they'll do a short-term rent back to the owner. And so sometimes this rent back can be completely free. Sometimes, you pay a per day amount. So if you stay X number of days, like 20 days, and it's $100 a day, you pay the buyer $2,000 at the close of escrow. You retain the property for another 20 days. Oftentimes we can get that 20-day basically for free, depending on the market. And so what will happen is it'll allow us to have enough time to sell the property, your property, get the proceeds from it, and then wire that proceed into the new property that you're purchasing, and still give you enough time to pack and move. This has been a strategy that I've used for many of my clients. So as a result, they've been able to only have minimal disruptions to their life because they can sell their house and move into the new one almost at the same time. I hope that helps. If you have any questions and you're not sure about your home, give me a call, 858-405-0002. I'd be happy to come by and take a look at your home, give you my honest opinion.